Welcome back, my brothers and sisters. This is Module 3, Part 2, talking about creation, the Tower of Babel, separation and reunification. Thanks for joining. Let us continue from where we left off in Module 3, Part 1. Okay, moving right along. So here are some more things that we know. In the first heaven, there is an order of arrangement based on strength, power, and knowledge. You see, first, there is the all-powerful Father, the Creator, and one true God, Yahweh. Then there is Yahushai, the Son. This is already shown. Then we can see that the angel Michael is quite strong. For example, in Daniel 8 verse 16, we see the angel Gabriel was sent to give a message to Daniel. Continuing in Daniel 10 verse 13, we see that Gabriel was given a message to deliver, but Satan tried to stop him. So Gabriel had to call Michael to help him defeat Satan. So let's dive deeper into more of the facts that we know for sure. After the earth was created, there was a war in heaven. We see this in Revelation 12 verse 7. Now after the war, Satan was kicked out of heaven to the earth. We see this in verse 9. Now Satan was kicked out along with 1/3 of the angels. Now this is seen in verse 4. We also see in Revelation 12 verse 10 that Satan was a liar and a troublemaker while in heaven, as he was an accuser before the Father day and night. Notice in Revelation 12 verse 12, it says the angels remaining in heaven can now rejoice that Satan is gone. But woe to those on earth and in the sea as he's coming down to earth. Brothers and sisters, the devil came down to continue with his troublemaking. This brings two things to mind. Firstly, there are no humans in the sea, only animals. Therefore, Satan must be able to communicate with and deceive animals, right? Secondly, were there any humans on earth at the time of the war in heaven? Or were there only animals at the time? This we do not know. What we do know is that Satan used the snake to communicate with Eve. We see this in Genesis 3 verse 1 to 5. He used the snake to communicate with Eve and deceive her. But why use the snake? Now know this. Demons are angels that either came out of heaven or were kicked out of heaven. Now demons can only possess an earthly body if it is allowed by the earthly body. The snake allowed the devil to possess its body so that the devil could communicate and deceive Eve. Now for that, the serpent was punished. We see this in Genesis 3 verse 14 to 15. Sounds crazy, right? The serpent allowing the devil to possess its body and use its body. Well, if you think that's crazy, picture this. If you have a dog, the dog will know you are its earthly master. Now, if another human being, a thief for example, attack you, chances are the dog will attack the thief in your defense, right? Now, let's say you and the same dog were standing before the Creator, Yahweh, or the Son, Yahushai. And one of them said to the dog, "Move and go sit in a corner." Don't you think that dog would move? Of course the dog would move. You see, even animals know their earthly master and that their heavenly masters come before their earthly master. An example of this is seen in Numbers 22 verse 21 to 34, where the donkey stood its ground. And that is why the serpent was punished, because it allowed the devil to possess and rule over its earthly body, thereby ignoring and disregarding its heavenly master, the Creator. Now, brothers and sisters, this is where I'm going to make a lot of you get upset. You see, all Satan needs is a simple invitation to possess an earthly body. Observing Halloween or Christmas, for instance, is worshipping the dead and a false god. These are very simple invitations that the devil loves. Now, let us talk about the second heaven and the third heaven. Well, brothers and sisters, as you know, I always encourage you to check what I'm saying. Double check, triple check. Look at the references that I've given and see if what I'm saying is true. Check it for yourself. Now, you know that we're using the King James Version of the Bible. Now, picture this as we dive into the second heaven and the third heaven. In Genesis 1 verse 6, the Father made a firmament and divided the waters. Now, in verse 7, he divided waters from under the firmament from the waters above the firmament. And in verse 8, he called the firmament heaven. So, picture a line, and that line divided what is above the line from what is below the line. Now let us continue. So as was stated in verse 8, he called the firmament heaven. So this line he called heaven. Now in Genesis 1 verse 9 and 10, under the firmament, under heaven, he gathered together the land and called it earth, and the water he called seas. Brothers and sisters, this is the third heaven. When you are on earth and you look up into the sky, you are looking up into heaven. This is the third heaven. This is the firmament. This is the sky. Now, take a look in Genesis 1, verse 14 to 18. Here again he talks about the firmament, but here he's talking about the sun, moon, stars, day, night, and seasons. Brothers and sisters, right here he's describing outer space, our solar system and other solar systems with other stars. Notice how in Genesis 1 verse 15, he said, "Let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light on the earth." While in verse 17, he placed them in the firmament of the heaven. He didn't say that he placed them in the firmament. He said he placed them in the firmament of the heaven. But remember in verse 8, he called the firmament heaven. So in verse 17, it's like he's saying he placed the lights in the heaven, which is the firmament of the heaven, right? So it's like he's saying he placed the lights in the heaven of the heaven, right? Brothers and sisters, this is outer space. This is the waters above the firmament. This is the waters above heaven. This is the heaven above heaven. This, brothers and sisters, is the second heaven. You see, brothers and sisters, the firmament is the earth's atmosphere. It's the sky. According to Wikipedia, Earth's atmosphere serves as a protective buffer between the Earth's surface and outer space. Talk about the marvel of design. Anything coming from outer space, once it enters into our atmosphere, it starts to burn. It's the protection. This is the heaven, the firmament, brothers and sisters. Look at the marvel of the design. So, brothers and sisters, the first heaven is where he lives. This is so far away, no man will ever be able to reach there. Think about it. Our fastest conceivable speed is the speed of light. Even at the speed of light, it takes light over 4 hours to reach Neptune from the sun. Think about it. Our technology is still not and will never be at the stage to allow our bodies to travel at the speed of light. Now, secondly, based on what we know about space, it is a void deep. Using what Gabriel said in Daniel 10, one has to assume that he was coming from very, very far in outer space. So clearly, the second heaven, as stated, is outer space. And the third heaven, the heaven where Enoch and Elijah was taken, is the sky. As we said, these men have died and is buried right here on earth. Remember, Yahushua said, only he who comes from heaven can ascend into heaven. You see this in John 3 verse 13. Again, what he was talking about was the first heaven. The place where they live. The place where you and I can never ever reach. So moving on. There are 2 more things worth mentioning before we answer the question as to why everything was made. Firstly, Revelation 21 verse 24 shows that some of us, mankind, will be saved and will be in the new world with the Father, the Son, and the other angels. Remember, this new world is going to be right here on this earth. It's going to be the new first heaven right here on this earth. However, in order for us to be with them, our earthly bodies have to be transformed or changed into bodies matching theirs. We see this in Philippians 3 verse 20 to 21. Also, we see it in 1 Corinthians 15 verse 42 to 54. This is also why Yahushua said in Matthew 22 verse 30 that in the resurrection there is no marriage taking place. We will be like the angels. There is no man and woman in heaven. No sexual activity. No reproduction, meaning no baby being born. Remember, only the Father, Yahweh, can create angels in heaven. This also explains, as mentioned previously, why the angels in heaven gave up their estate to come down to earth to have sex with a woman on earth. There is no sexual act taking place in heaven. Sorry, brothers and sisters. As mentioned before, earthly bodies, while made in the image and likeness of heavenly bodies. We see this in Genesis 1 verse 26. So while we are made in the image and likeness of heavenly bodies, our bodies are much weaker than heavenly bodies. So much so that we cannot even look at them without either dying or going blind. Remember, in John 1 verse 18, Yahushua said, "No man has seen the Father." In order for the heavenly bodies to communicate with us, it has to be done through dreams, visions, or by possessing other earthly bodies, such as burning bushes, animals, thunder, writing on walls, etc. So moving on. Secondly, Genesis 2 verse 8 said that Yahushua created Eden. Then he placed a garden in the east part of Eden and put Adam in the garden. This is the Garden of Eden. So picture this again, my brothers and sisters. Yahushua created earth. Then he put Eden somewhere on the earth. Then he put a garden in the east part of Eden. Hence the Garden of Eden. Now after Adam and Eve was kicked out of the garden, we see this in Genesis 3 verse 23 to 24. After they were kicked out, they went east. We know this because Genesis 3 verse 24 said the Father placed flaming swords at the east of the Garden of Eden. In fact, all of the offsprings of Adam kept going further and further east. Look at this. Genesis 4 verse 16 said Cain went east. Furthermore, Genesis 2 verse 10 states that a river went out of Eden to water the garden, which was in the east of Eden. Remember, right? From there, the river broke into 4 heads. So the first head surrounded the whole land of Havilah. We see this in Genesis 2 verse 11. So where is Havilah? Well, Havilah is the name of a man. We see this in Genesis 10 verse 7. But it is also the name of a place, as most places are named after people. You see, brothers and sisters, Havilah the man resided in Havilah the place. This place is seen in Genesis 25 verse 18. Havilah is before Egypt going towards Assyria. The land of Assyria today includes Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Iran, etc. These lands are all east of Egypt. So, the river is flowing east, and the first head surrounds the land east of Egypt. Now, this part is interesting. The second head surrounds the whole land of Ethiopia. We see this in Genesis 2 verse 13. Well, according to Ezekiel 29 verse 10, Ethiopia back then would be what we call Africa today. Yes, when the Bible says Ethiopia, it meant Africa in today's words. Hence, Ethiopia would be to the west and south of Egypt. So here's the proof. Note in Ezekiel 29 verse 10, it states that Syene is the end of Egypt. what we today would call the border. So at the border, Syene, this is where Ethiopia starts, the rest of modern-day Africa in today's words. Hence, Ethiopia, which is Africa, would be to the west and south of Egypt. Alright, so moving on. The third and the fourth heads, as seen in Genesis 2 verse 14, are going even further east of Assyria. So, all of Adam's offspring back then were heading from Africa towards the east, past Egypt and beyond. Hence, Eden and the garden that was in Eden, the Garden of Eden, was either in Western Africa or is now off the coast of Western Africa, somewhere buried deep in the Atlantic Ocean. Remember, the Father placed flaming swords at the east of the garden. We see this again in Genesis 3 verse 24. He placed the swords at the east of the garden, and therefore everyone kept going east of the flaming swords. Well, with all this knowledge, let us now summarize why the earth, mankind, and the universe was made, and why we are still here. So Yahweh, the Father, the Creator, the one and only all-powerful true God, created Yahushai, the Son, and all the angels, and they lived in the first heaven, along with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Then Yahushai, the Son, the Word, Yahushai, with permission from Yahweh, the Father, created everything else with precision and perfection. The Son made the earth unique and special so that they could then reside on earth along with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. The last thing Yahushai created during the 7 days was man. He created man on the 6th day to tend to the earth. Now, after the Son created man, the Father then breathed into his nostrils the breath of life and made man a living soul. Note, it is a speculation on our part that only the Father can give the breath of life, not the Son or anyone else. And on the 7th day, they all rested. This is the Sabbath. After Yahushua created Adam, he realized that Adam was lonely, so he created Eve for Adam. Now, during this time, the devil created much mischief. Incidentally, one such mischief was to deceive Eve. Now, by creating so much mischief in heaven, the devil created a war in heaven, and this resulted in him being kicked out of heaven. Satan then came to earth with a third of the angels from heaven to continue his destruction. Upon realizing the disloyalty of Satan and some of the angels he created, instead of just making more angels to replace those that were kicked out, Yahweh then shifted focus. Since angels have everlasting life and cannot die, it makes sense to test the loyalty of man, weed out the loyal ones, and give them angelic powers and everlasting life. Those of us that prove our loyalty will enjoy everlasting life on the earth beside the Father, the Son, and the other angels. By immortalizing those of us that are loyal, the Creator would be replacing the angels that followed Satan. Now remember, these angels are now demons. So he will be replacing these angels while also ensuring that there won't be a repetition of war, chaos, and pain, because he would have already proven that we are loyal to him. Now the others that are not loyal, after resurrecting and facing judgment, as per Revelation 20 verse 13, they will be cast into the lake of fire. We see this in verse 15, where they will die a second time, as per verse 14. Note in verse 6, it shows that the loyal ones will not die a second death. So that the ones that are not loyal will be cast into the lake of fire, but this time there will be no hope of resurrection for them. So Satan and the rest of the fallen angels, which are now demons who cannot die, will be locked away as per Revelation 19 verse 20. They will be locked away forever. This is what is called perdition. We see this in Revelation 17 verse 8. Note that Revelation 19 verse 21 states that the others, the humans, will be killed. This ties in with Revelation 20 verse 14, which is the second death. Human beings will not go into perdition. They will be killed in the second death. So don't believe the idiot preachers who say bad people will be tormented in hell forever. That is crap. Only those who cannot die, which is Satan and his demons, will be locked away forever. Perdition. Brothers and sisters, there's a lot more to be said, but time is again upon us. So let us continue in part 3. Please subscribe and join me in module 3, part 3.